it contains sol, and it contains camera. And here we have an ID, it is a number. So we have some sol, that is also number. And we have some camera. Camera is again an object. You can see in that camera is again object which have ID, name, rover ID, full name. That means camera is again having ID, name, full name, like this details. And you can see there is another object, image, property image SRC, that contains the picture. And it contains earth date, which is of type date. And it contains rover. Rover is again an object. That means here we have other details and we have again rover. Rover is again an object. This contains ID, name, all these details. So in order to present data, first a developer needs to understand data. You should know what data is coming, what type of content is present. Then it is easy for presenting. Now let's see how we can present. For presentation, you need good skills of understanding data as well as HTML, because presentation happens in HTML. For example, I want to present this in a table. Then it's easy. I will show you both techniques, how to handle this. Let's go to the component here. I created a component called for demo. Now in the for demo component, we want to display the data coming from this API. So various presentation techniques we will learn. We will see various presentation techniques. First here, I will fetch the data. Now you see, I know that the data is coming in an object form. So we have to create an object. Suppose I will say Mars. Mars is any type object, because we know that data is coming from in the format of an object. Now in this, now we create a method called load Mars photos. This method is going to fetch data from this API, and fetch the API URL is this. You can copy this URL and you can paste that URL here. This is the URL. Actually, every APIs, sometimes they have API key. As of now, you don't need to worry about that. But generally, sometimes what people do is they seek for authentication. They don't provide API simply like that. That means, for example, they have limit. They say that you can access 100 requests per day, 20 requests per day, because okay, we are providing data free, but in limits you have to use. Who is using their data, from where they are accessing the data? To know all this information, they provide some security keys. Actually, temporarily, if you are practicing for 1 time, 2 time, 5 time, 10 times, it's okay. But if you are using this data for commercial purpose in other websites, then you need a key. For that, you have to register in this API website. That means you need to go to NASA API official. Here you have to sign in actually. In this website, you have to generate API key. For generating API key, they will ask you to enter the details, your details. After you enter the details, they will verify your details and they will provide a API key. And that API key you have to use every time when you are using their APIs. But as of now, while practicing, because you are not using for any commercial purpose, it's okay. You can practice, you can try. You don't need any keys. But later, if you are using this for a commercial purpose, compulsory, mandatory that you need a key. As of now, we don't need this. That's the reason here you can just leave the demo key. Otherwise, whatever API key they provide, that key you have to paste here. And they will provide a unique key for every API. You have to use that, right? So technically, as of now, you don't need this. So we will just copy that URL. Next, then, and it will get response. That response need to be converted into JSON. And another then, so this uses data, and data is coming in an object. That object I have to store in Mars. This dot Mars is equal to whatever data is coming. And actually the data coming from this API is an object. Okay. Fine. The data is in Mars. I need to present this. Simple. Let's go to and create a table like Mars rover photos. Mars rover photos. We are using Mars rover photos. And here I am generating a table. And here I will give the class table hover. Now in this, I will create a t-head, trth. Now what you want to present inside the data? Let's check. The data I want to present is, suppose I want to present the photo ID. Every photo have an ID. Then here I will give photo ID. Second, in the next cell, I want to display the picture. I want to display the picture. Then picture property is image src. So here I will give preview. Preview is the picture. Next cell, I want to display which camera took that photo. That means there is a camera which is an object. Camera object contains full name, which returns the complete camera name. Then I will give camera name. Okay. Another option, I want which rover took the photo. That means there is another object inside this. Another object inside this is rover. This rover is again an object which contains rover name, which is the rover name, Curiosity, right? So I will give rover name. These are the details I want to display. Now, if I want to display these details, let's see. I will go into the table body. In the table body, I need to generate a row. So we need to repeat this row. To repeat this row, we have to use ng for. ng for let item of collection. Collection is Mars, not Mars. Mars is not collection because Mars is an object. Mars is an object. You see, Mars is an object type. So it is not collection. It is an object type. This data is object. In Mars, actually, we have this is an object. In that we have a property called photos, which is array. That means now it is not Mars. So it is Mars dot photos. Because Mars is an object, in that object there is a property called photos that contains array. That is all the collection of photos. That means we cannot perform iteration on an object. You have to perform iteration only on a collection. And the collection here is this photos. That is the collection. This contains all the array. Now, what we have to do? So for that, in the first cell, I need to display item.id. That is the first one. In the second cell, I need to display item.image img underscore src. In the third cell, I want to display here image. This is a picture now. Then what we have to do? We have to put an image. Image source coming from item.img underscore src. Width I given some 100 and height I given as 100. Okay, fine. Now below this, I need to get the camera name. You saw that already. It is item.camera.full underscore name. That returns the camera name. We have another cell. There I want to display the rover name. Item.rover. Rover is an object. In that we have name. Now that is the data we are having. And you can see I request this localhost. And this is all the NASA data it should return. That means the API data it will return. And let's see some issues. Anything? We haven't loaded this now, right? In the TS file, load Mars photos on initialization. This dot load Mars photos. We need to load this, and it gets all the data and display from the API. These are all the photos. So we are accessing the data and we are displaying the data from that API. That is the photo ID, the preview, the camera, and the rover name. So we are fetching the data and we are displaying the data here. These are all the data that they have. Now, generally, when you are working with APIs, the first point, understanding the data and presenting the data. And on the data, we need to handle manipulations. That means now we need to create an interface so that user can filter, sort, search. Suppose I want all photos taken by Curiosity rover. I want all photos taken from January to December or January to May. So you can sort, you can filter, you can search. All such functionality we have to implement. So generally, when you are working for real-time environment, data comes to you from any API. It's not necessary that you will design the API, because your backend technologies will create the APIs and they will just provide you the queries. You have to just use those queries, fetch the data and present. Majority, even in interviews also, when you go to Angular based interviews, project based interviews anywhere, means what they do is they will give you API. They will say that this is the data. This is where our data is present, and they will provide some screenshots. They will say that design these screens and show me. That screen may contain grids, charts, filtering, dashboards. You have to design them and display. The data comes from their APIs. So understanding API, data and presenting. This is the key point. It's not necessary that you have to present in a table form. You can present in any format. For example, let's see how we can present the data. Let's go and see. I will copy this example first. So here I am using Mars rover photos. That is the API I am using. That is the API query I am using. I will keep that query URL also for your reference sake. You can get it from their website. I'm giving that API URL. That is the API URL. So here, example, we have for demo dot component dot ps. In that, this is the logic, and another for demo dot component dot html. This is the logic. How you present that depends on your requirement. Suppose I want to display in a card style. Usually products details all are displayed in a card style. So let's see. I will remove this table. I don't want in a table form. I want to display in a card style. So you see here, I am designing a div. You know how to design cards in Bootstrap. I will put a class dflex, display flex. I will put flex wrap, and here inside this I will create a div. This div uses a class called card. It uses a class called card. Now I will use margin as 2, padding as 2, and style width as 200 pixels. Now this is a card, 200 pixels. I want this card to repeat for every photo. That means this card we need to repeat for every photo. Then we have to define ng for let item of collection. Collection is mars.photos. That is the collection. Now this card will repeat for every photo. And we have to display here. Generally card contains an image here, src. It is coming from item.img src. So height I given 200, width I given as not width. I will just put a class called card image top. That is actually Bootstrap. After that I will keep a div. This is card header. That is card header. Okay. And we will put here a heading that contains the item ID, item.id. After that we will design a div. This is class card body. In this we will create a data list with a data term. Here we will say camera name. And to get the camera name, you need to define item.camera.full_name. And similarly in the next I have rover name, and here I am defining same item.rover.name. That is the name. And you can see that this is going to display all the data in a card style. So here so many cards are there. I will use flex wrap. So, and one more option here, because it is using lot of display. Where is it? All these are so many photos. Everything is coming in one row only. Huh? Right. So here I will use presentation. Yeah. This is margin and padding. Card width is there. Right. So where we are using wrap wrong, spelling wrong, wrap, right. Flex wrap. Now you can see all these images are displayed in this way. Now this is card style, how you display the data in a card style. Presentation depends on how much Bootstrap CSS you know. Based on that, the presentation. That means these are all the cards and it is displaying all this. Now these are all the photos and their details. So this is accessing the data and displaying the data from an API. And here we are using a simple, that is ng for. We are using ng for accessing every item from the collection and presenting. So this is a simple API data, means how we can access, how we can present. Presentation completely depends on your HTML, CSS and Bootstrap. Many times people ask like, do I need to have good knowledge of CSS and Bootstrap as an Angular developer? Of course. You are an Angular developer. Angular developer means you are a front-end designer. That means Angular means front-end presentation. So there is no point like you can call yourself as Angular developer without proper knowledge of Bootstrap and CSS. Nobody will accept you as an Angular developer, right? So what kind of front-end developer without knowledge of CSS, without knowledge of Bootstrap? So you will never fit into that role at all. It's not about what framework, high level framework you are learning. It's about how you are able to interact with the data provided by the client environment. For that, lot of user interface required. And it's not just only Bootstrap and CSS. You will learn one more concept, Angular Material, that I will show you, which provides more such components for presentation. Those you can handle only when you have good knowledge of CSS. So complete presentation depends on these skills, right? This is another example, everything same. Another example here, this is here HTML I have to paste. I will put the same, just difference is this time I am displaying as cards. Here I will paste that cards, copy that. This is the cards type, because table already in previous example I showed you. So how we can present data and how we can handle the data. This is simple. Sometimes data can be little bit different. This is okay. Now you understood and you can present anything here, because here it contains array, object, array, object. Sometimes some complex data will be there. For example, in this API I don't have that. In this API we don't have that. Let's create some data. Means we will see another example here. So we will see another example how we have to handle nested iterations. Sometimes data will be in such a way that you need nested iterations. As of now, in this, we don't need any nested iterations. The NASA API, you don't need, because data is straightforward. Object, array, objects, only these are there. But sometimes you see now, data can be in a different way. What I will do is, I will go to this TS file. Let's clean up all this. And let's put some raw data here. I will remove all this. I will delete all this part. Okay. And now see here, I'm creating some data called menu. Menu is an array type. Menu is an array type. In this array, we are giving an object. This object is category. And this category object contains the category name. So category name, some electronics. In that, it have products. And products is again array. Now this time, it is having like TV, like mobile. This is how the data is now. So that means every object have a category. Every object have a category. In that we have some footwear, and in that we have products. This looks little different. Here I have Nike casuals, and here I have some Lee boots, something like this. This is the data we have. Now what is different here is you have an array inside array. You have an array inside array. Previously in the NASA data, you don't have that. It contains object, array, and inside array objects. Camera was an object, rover was an object, all are objects. But here we have an array in array. If such arrays are there, then I need two levels iteration. One iteration for main, another iteration for products. Nested iterations. So how to present this data? Let's see. So to present the data, suppose I am creating here, so nested iterations. I will create here an ordered list. I want this to be generated in an ordered list. Ordered list means I want like this. That means now your data is little different. You have an array. In that array, you have an object. In that object, again, you have an array. In that object, there is a property category. This category is a string. And you have a property called products. Products is an array. Now I need to present this. That means now actually I want like this. Number one, electronics. And in electronics, I want TV and I want mobile like this. And number two, so say footwear. In this footwear, I want, so like Nike. So I want like Lee, like this I want. That's how we want to present. That means now the point is data is like this. And this data need to be presented in this way. Where people fail in presenting is not having proper knowledge of HTML. Because if you are not good in HTML, then it is impossible to present. It's not possible. Because first you should know in HTML how nested list is created. In HTML, how nested list is created. In HTML, when you are creating a nested list, usually OL, in that we have a list item. Now, that list item have like electronics. Now, under that list item, this is list item. In this list item, you need another ordered list. Or you can use an unordered list. That means in order to present anything, first you should have a proper HTML idea. That means you should first imagine how this is presented in HTML. Then you can decide which HTML element to repeat, where to repeat, which one to repeat. This is where people face problem. That means you should know correct where to repeat, which one to repeat. So here let's see how to present this. Now I am giving here list item. This list item should repeat. So for whom it should repeat? It should repeat the main menu. For all the objects that we have, it should repeat. So what we will do, ng for and let item of menu. Menu is an array. Now in this array, here I want to display that see, this item contains two properties now. One is category, another one products. I want to display item dot category. Item dot category, it is going to display all the categories. Now, for every list item here, for every list item inside it, I want to create an unordered list. Inside this unordered list, we will have a list item. This list item should repeat. This list item should repeat for item products. That means here we have to use another ng for. Here we have to define let. I cannot use item again because item is already used in higher scope. You have to use product of every item, let product of what is the collection. Collection is item dot products. That means this item contains two properties. One is category, another one products. Category is a string, so we are displaying. Products is an array, then we are using another iteration. Now here I need to present that product. I need to present that product, every product that you are reading from the products, and that's how the data is presented. That is how we are presenting the data. This is nested. That means many times when data comes to you, it will be in an array. That means you have to go several levels. There is nothing like how many levels I can write. There is no limit for that. There is no limit that you write 2 levels, 3 levels, 4 levels. It depends. So there is no limit for number of levels you write. But one important point is whenever you are using structural directives, you have to note this point. Actually, the point is every element, every HTML element allows only one structural directive. Every HTML element allows only one structural directive. You cannot use multiple. We need to use multiple. In next example, I will show you. Multiple means, for example, here we are writing. What does that means? Suppose we have a div, and here we are writing ng for. This is a structural directive. Now here I am writing ng if. So this is invalid. That is invalid. You cannot have multiple structural directives in one element. There can be only one. Now, why specially we discussed this point? Because many times when you are writing a for, you can write conditions inside for. That means for will repeat for every item, but I don't want like that. If condition is matching, then break. If condition is not matching, then skip. You have such options. So, but that is not possible. You cannot write like this. Then how to handle those situations, I will show you. That means every time you can write a directive inside another directive, but multiple directives cannot be written in one element. That means a single HTML element cannot have multiple directives. Always you have to write multi-level. Now, very important here, we presented like this. Now, for example, you see, I am creating another heading. Just I will give here as, suppose this is a categories list. So here, select category, select product. Okay. Now inside this, I am giving a drop down. Now this is a drop down we have. Now tell me, is it possible to display like this in a drop down? Can we display multi-level in a drop down? Will HTML drop down support this kind of presentation? Multi-level drop down. Have you ever designed a HTML drop down with such multi-levels? Is it possible to do like that? It is possible. then how? That means if it is possible, then how? This is what HTML is. That means you should have good knowledge of HTML, good knowledge of HTML. Here what we have to do is, technically, let's go into the design. Into the design now, here, we will create example. So here, generally you already know that select contains options, but not only options, I hope you also know select contains an OPT group. Select contains an OPT group. This OPT group contains option. OPT group contain option. That means now what we have to do is, we have to repeat this OPT group. That means we have to write ng for let item let item of collection. Collection is menu. We are repeating for menu, and in the menu here, remember, the menu contains category and products. Now category name should be displayed in OPT group. I hope you learned HTML OPT group have a property called label. You know, it have a property called label. To this label property, you have to apply item.category. And inside OPT group, this option should repeat. This option should repeat for every product. That means ng for let product of item.products. And every product information must be displayed here. Every product information must be displayed here. Now you can see, this is how we can present the data. That is OPT group and option. So that means, in order to present anything perfectly in Angular, you should have good HTML skills first. You should be perfect in HTML. Angular is very simple thing. Angular is a framework. So even a school kid can learn frameworks. No programming language complexity, right? So generally in corporate level training, we take only 2 days for training Angular. Only 2 days. I freelance for HP, Hewlett Packard. That means we do corporate level trainings for company developers. And they undergo training, developers undergo training. We will give only 2 days training Angular. Angular means only 2 days. 2 days Angular finish. Because the range capacity of the developers, the 2 days is enough for them. Because we just explain the complete scenario and the topics, how they handle. They will research, they will do rest of the work. Maximum 2 days on. That means frameworks are very simple. It's not very complicated. Programming languages, very much time. But frameworks are very simple things. In framework, we need to explain the architecture, infrastructure, and functionality. So that is the point here. If you have to, means who can understand 2 days? Actually, recently, because of pandemic, we are not conducting. I hope you know, in Hyderabad, we have weekend batches generally. Weekend batches, Angular, React, weekend batches. So 2 weekends, 3 weekends batches. People fly from Bangalore, fly from Chennai, fly from Delhi. They come here, stay 2 days in Hyderabad, finish the course weekend and go. For past few years, such batches were there regularly. From pandemic onwards, we stopped that. That means people fly from Delhi, Bangalore, Chennai locations, come here, stay for 2 days and just learn Angular. Angular 2 days, React 2 days, only 2 days. And they are people who have experience vast. That means project leads, team leads, like people come here, and for them only 2 days enough to learn the technology. Enough. Even if I try to explain a scenario of example, they say that, sir, we don't want this, just tell the architecture behind it. They just want the architecture behind it. That's enough. They can crack themselves. So technically, framework is very simple to handle. Only the point is your presentation skills must be good. That means understanding data and keeping this data in the presentation and designing the presentation which allows to interact with the data. That is enough. This is what we expect from an Angular developer, right? So you need to be very strong in all these aspects: HTML, CSS, presentation, data, JSON, right? So here we are presenting data nested. You see, now very much confusion here is which one to repeat, where to put the title. For that, you should have good HTML skills. That means you know that there is an option group, and you know that option group contains a label. In that label, I can put the category name, and inside option group, again, repeat should happen for option. That's how we need to handle the data presentation. For example, let's see one more point here. Means just for your example, see, I am creating topics. Topics is any type of array. Any type of array. And in this, we have title. Title is some HTML. Okay, we have like, so this description. Description is HTML is a markup language. Like this I give it. Now another title. So okay, another title. And here I said JavaScript. And description. Yeah, in the description I given here as JavaScript is just in time and interpreted programming language. Like this I just divide. Now this is the point. This is the data we are having. Now if they ask you to present the data like this, that means, see, I will show you the preview. We have topics. The topics is an array. The topics array contains object. This object contains title, and it contains description. These are the two things we are having. Now what they asked is, they asked to present in a data list. In a data list, they asked that DT should be title, data term. Title should be in data term. And the data definition, we have to define data definition. Remember, data definition should contain description. Like this, they want all the terms and definitions. Now tell me which element to repeat here. I have to repeat DL, or I have to repeat DT, or I have to repeat DD. Which one I have to repeat? Data list or data term or data definition, where the repeat should happen? Which one we should repeat here? If you repeat DL, for every item DL will create it. No. DL must be only one. Every item should be different. If you repeat DT, right, only DT will repeat. You have to repeat term and definition both. So, for example, let's see now. Means how we can present this. Let's see. Above I will give just for understanding. So here I will give as topics. Now let's go here. Data list. We cannot repeat data list because every item cannot be in a separate list, right? Now you see here, I am using DT, data term. I am repeating this data term. How I am repeating the data term? Suppose ng for is equal to let item of collection. What is the collection? Topics. But very important, in this you can display item dot what is it? Title. So now very important, the titles will be displayed HTML and JavaScript. But you cannot define DD because DD is not a part of DT. Inside it cannot be. Understood? DD is not a part. DD if it is a part here, right? DD if it is a part here, then you can handle it. Nested iteration you can write. But DD is not a part of DT. DT is separate. Under DT, DD will come. Then obviously this ng for will not work for this. Right? You cannot iterate data list. You cannot iterate data terms. You cannot iterate data definition. Then how? You cannot iterate data definition also because only data definition will repeat. Then how you will present these terms and definitions? So for that, generally what we do is here, inside this, we need to maintain a container. This container should repeat. That means ng for let item of collection. Collection is topics. In that we have a term, and this term should contain item dot title. Under that we have definition. It should contain item dot description. And you can see that div will repeat for that. That is how we handle the iteration. That means here some more technical issues are there. We will learn how to resolve them. That means you cannot repeat term, you cannot repeat definition, you cannot repeat list. But you have to present this. That means you should know what to repeat, where to repeat, how do we configure. This is where technical issues comes, because many times you learn several examples, but still they may give you some task in such a way that you haven't practiced that any time. That means you will be thinking how this can achieve, right? What can be used for this, where to iterate. For that you should have good HTML skill. But here one important technical problem is there. To resolve such problems in Angular we have solution. Later I will tell you. What is technical problem? As technical problem is nothing but it is not to have a div inside data list. Means it is not good to have a div inside data list. You cannot have a div inside data list. Data list should contain directly terms and definition. This is presenting okay, fine. But what it is happening here, this div also generated. For every item, one div. In the div, it will have terms and definition. But as of now, we can do that. Later, you will learn that without generating div, we can create such iterations. For that, Angular provides containers. If you remembered, I told you a container called ng template. But here we don't use that ng template. There are other options. We have ng containers. Later I will tell you. That means we cannot directly use them. Here we have an ng container. This is the container which is performing the iteration. So here you see it is working fine. But what is the point here is this ng container is working, and observe carefully when you inspect. In the inspect, when you go here, you can see that in the data list, directly terms and definitions are there. Terms and definitions are there. Directly terms and definitions are there. Actually, previously what happening is when you are using a div, as a container, what happens is you can see that in the output you can observe here. In the output you can see that the data list contains, you see a div. Inside div, terms and definition will come. That is unnecessarily generating an element. You should not do that. For that we have to use dynamic containers, that is ng container. What is difference between ng container and ng template? ng template is dynamic. ng container is static. That means it is a static container. Static container means it cannot dynamically handle any logic. That means you give IDs, you give references. It cannot dynamically handle any logic. It is just used as a container for holding the data. That means it cannot change dynamically. That means you cannot hide it. You cannot add or remove it situation wise. It will not reflect that. Container is just a container. Template difference is template allows you to dynamically render data into it, dynamically add or remove it from the DOM. But ng container just holder. ng container is holder, which is used to hold some content. But what is advantage? It is not going to really generate any element in the DOM. Without generating any element in the DOM, it can present your content. So these kind of presentations require a container. So why you need a container? Because we cannot repeat terms, we cannot repeat definitions. We have to repeat both of them. But in data list, there is no such container which we can generally use. If I put additionally span or div or any other container inside it, it will increase the DOM hierarchy and it is unnecessary. So you cannot put a div correctly inside it. So which one we have to go with now? Containers. That means we need another important option. One more point I will give here. Another important is in the node. You can use a dynamic, you can use a Angular, you can use an Angular container to hold the content, and render into DOM You can use an Angular container to hold the content and render into DOM. So, and that is nothing but ng container. We have ng container. So this is very important. So, and here the frequently asked question, what is difference between ng template and ng container? That is the regular question comes here. So ng template is a dynamic container which can add data into DOM or remove from DOM dynamically. from DOM dynamically. ng container is a static container, which can hold only the content required to display in DOM. It can, that means it is just a content holder. It is just a content holder. You cannot handle any kind of manipulations on it. You cannot handle it. That means you cannot dynamically put any data into it. You cannot dynamically put any data into it. If you have to dynamically put any data into it, then it should be a template. Template only allows to put dynamic data. This contains ready-made container. It contains ready-made data. That means what happened here, you see. So what is the point here? In ng container directly you have template. But what you saw in ng template can have the data dynamically. You can send data into it dynamically. So you cannot use this in ng if. In ng if, when you are trying, I already told you, if and then templates. When in ng if, you cannot use this ng container. In ng if, you cannot use this container. ng if should use only ng template. Here you cannot use ng template. Suppose I am trying to write here ng template. Here I am writing here ng template. I am using ng template for presentation. Here I am using ng template. It's not working. ng template cannot work here. ng template cannot work. It's not showing any error. But ng template cannot work because it to be added dynamically. It to be removed dynamically. It should be added and removed dynamically. That means who will control this ng template? If is going to control this template, what is if responsible for? If is responsible for adding and removing. Template is meant for adding and removing the data. It is not meant for holding the data. Container is meant for holding the data. That means this is only for adding and removing data. You can add, you can remove. But the container, so it is not suitable here. With which combination you can use it? Only with the combination of if. Right? Then how to hold the data? You have to use a container. We have to use a container. That means you have to just define ng container. That will be better. That we can display the data here. That can access and display the data here. So this is the technique of presenting the data. The various ways of presenting the data. So I will copy this example. Here, let's take an example here. Same for demo.component.ts. Here, I am showing you this data. Means I am adding some different data. Because in NASA API, you have just array and objects. But you need to know how to deal with objects in array, array in objects, array in array, various mechanisms. That's the reason so many examples I am giving here. So previous example contains object array. Now this contains array, object, array. Multiple we have, right? I will copy this. This is an example component. Yeah. For demo.component.html. In that HTML, this is the presentation. Means how we can present all the data and define it. Right. This is ng for. That means how we can use ng for. We will create one more complex example. We will see that. But very important, you should know that ng for actually, ng for comprises of some important properties. You just used ng for. Simply you used ng for. But ng for contains lot of properties. By using these properties, you can handle the ng for in a more better way. In a more better way. What are the properties ng for is having? Let's see. You just saw ng for, but it have lot of properties. What are those properties? Let me put the property and type and description. ng for have important properties, and the properties, we have a property index. Its type is number. It returns the iterating item index number. Index is used to return the iterating item index number. Why to have that index number? I will show you with example. We will see. That means index is a property of ng for. By using this property, you can get the iterating item index number. That means when an item is iterating, we can get its index number. Is it at 0 or 1 or 2? You can get the index number. Similarly, we have first. It is a boolean. So it returns true. If the item occurrence, if item is at first occurrence. Similarly, we have last. It is a boolean. We have even. This is also a boolean. And odd. This is also a boolean. This also boolean. We have track by. This is a function. Track by is a function. So what last will do? It returns true if it is last occurrence. If it is last. It is last. Now it returns true if it is even. If it is even. Even means even occurrence. And returns true if it is odd occurrence. And what is track by? It identifies the changes in iterating items. What is the use of it? I will tell you. I will show you why we need this. These are all the properties of ng for. As of now, you have used just ng for. But ng for contains all these properties. So you can write like this. Syntactically, you are repeating a list item. And here you are writing ng for. And here we are writing item of collection. After that, you can put a semicolon and you can declare a variable. So this variable, that means let, variable name, and it can contain that index. That means what index will do? Index will return the index number, and it will store in this variable. So similarly, you can put another variable name and is equal to, you can access even. Similarly, you can define let, so variable name, and you can put some first. These are the properties, means all properties you can use like this. That means what will be in index variable? It contains index number. What will be in this even variable? It contains true or false. Is it even or is it odd? True or false. It will return boolean true or false. I will show you first. I will show you what it returns actually. So let's do one thing. Let's take a proper data here. I will take here products. Products is an any type array. In that we have subproduct name and we have the product price. Okay, let it be with simple data like this. And another we have name. So we have like mobile and price. So some data we are adding here. Another we have name, and we have Nike casuals, and we have price. Some data we are defining here. Okay, now I need to present this data in a table form. Here, just roughly I will give here the products table, and let's create a table. So here we have T head and TR and TH. So we know it will have name and price. And here I will just keep a class called table and table hover. And here I am defining table body and table row. It should repeat ng for let item of collection, that is products. In that first cell should display item name, second cell should display item price. This is okay. This is what we are doing. In the iteration we are doing like this. We are generating the data in a table. Now see here, iteration have properties. In this iteration we can add properties. I am using let I is equal to index. Index is a property. In that I am storing that in I reference. Similarly, let suppose f is equal to first. So let L is equal to last. So let O is equal to odd, and let E is equal to even. Just I am giving these variables. Remember, these are all the properties of ng for. And see here, I am writing index, and I am writing first. Yeah, and I am writing last, and I am writing even and odd. Even order, odd even, odd even. I will put odd and I will keep even. Now see here, I am adding the cell TD, and here I will give directly I. Similarly, another TD, here we have F. So another TD, this is the variable L. Another TD, this is the variable O. And another TD, that is the variable E. And you can see all the details will be like this. Now index is a number type. First, last, odd, even are Boolean types. And see the index number. It is 0, 1, 2. First true because it is first occurrence. Others false because they are not first occurrence. Now last false. Last one is this true because that is the last occurrence. And this is odd, so it is false because starts with 0. One is odd, then it will return true. This is false. Even it will return true or false. Now the question is, why you need this? What is the necessity of knowing index number? What is the necessity of knowing whether it is a first occurrence or last? What is the necessity of knowing whether it is an even or odd? So can you tell any necessity for index number? Where you can use index number? In an iteration, when item is iterating, where I can use index number? What is the necessity of index number? Index number is required to identify where that item is present. Why we need to identify where that item is present? As of now, no problem. But see, suppose later here, what I am doing is, I am giving here, so action. And this last cell I am adding a button. I am adding a button. I will say delete. And you can see there is a delete button. Remember, this delete button is repeating. That means how many buttons are there? Only one. But it is repeating 3 times. Then how that table knows that I clicked third row delete button? Because when I click on delete, it should delete only that row. Button is only one, it is repeating. If button is only one and it is repeating, so then how we can know which row delete button they clicked? Then you can obviously send the index number, right? So previously, in previous example, you saw switch example I showed you. We have 3 buttons or 4 buttons, 4 different buttons. All 4 different buttons having different names. We are passing the name into function. But here only one button, it repeats 3 times. If only one button is repeating 3 times, if you give a name, every time name is same. Every time name is same, every time ID is same, every time. For example, if I give the button name as delete, everywhere it is delete only. Everywhere it is delete only. Then how do we know which row delete button they clicked? Then what we can do is, in the button, I will write a simple logic here. We will say delete click, okay? We will say delete click. In delete click, we are passing index number. We are expecting index. What type it is? Number. Now see what we are doing here. So we have to write a click. On this click, what is it? Delete click. Delete click. On delete click, we have to pass I. I is index number. That index number we are collecting here. And see how to delete. I hope you know how to delete. That means what you can do is simply we can use this dot products dot splice. You know splice method. In array we have a splice method. Delete from which index? Index I. How many you have to delete? 1. That is how we can configure the delete option. That means now I click on delete of mobile, then it should delete. I click on delete on TV, it should delete. That means how it knows which row delete button you click? By using index. Because you cannot have name, you cannot have ID, because the same button is repeating. If same button is repeating every time, then the problem is which button they clicked, which occurrence it is. That is what you have to send. Is it 0? Is it 1? Is it 2? We can send the index number and we can handle such type of I just given delete button. Later, if I click edit, if I click update, save like options, it should handle only that particular. So in that case, in such cases, we need that index number. So when we need an index number to send the index details to the logic, so that based on that, it can handle interaction, right? In this kind of situations, you need index. Here it's very simple. You see the data, I click on delete and it will delete that record. Of course, you know JavaScript. Before deleting, if you want to warn, are you sure you want to delete? Yes, no. If they say yes, then delete. Otherwise, no. Of course, these are simple things that you can do in your JavaScript, right? For that, you need a variable called flag. You need a variable called flag. And this flag is containing confirm. Confirm, so contains a message. Are you sure? Are you sure? Want to delete this message. Now you know that if flag is equal to true, if flag is equal to true means they said yes, then delete. Otherwise, don't do anything. That means only when it is true, delete. Otherwise, don't do anything. Now you see here, I am having this option. I click on delete. So it says, are you sure you want to delete? I say cancel. Nothing happened. That means I click on delete. Are you sure you want to delete? So, okay, now it is deleted. So you click on delete. Are you sure you want to delete? Cancel. It's not deleted. And you say delete. Okay, then it is deleted. That's how we can manage this. This is simple logic to handle. That means now the question here, how to use the index. This is example for index. So for demo.component.ts, in that I had this data, and for demo.component.html, and in that I just designed this for your understanding sake. So this is the simple one. Here additionally we used a delete click, in that we are passing the index. Now similarly, why we need even, odd, why we need first, last, and what is the responsibility of track by, we have to understand. We will see examples for that. That we'll see tomorrow. Right, in tomorrow's session, we will see why we need other properties, where they are used while working with ngFor. Okay, then we can design a big example. Okay, with all these things. Tomorrow we'll continue. Huh?